Started from the bottom, now we're here.
Are you two ready? Yeah. Alright, we good. Now the important part. My case. Alright. Now begin. Joseph and I believe that debating a resolution that debaters care about promotes more critical thinking and higher engagement. Thus, the new NSDA September-October Public Forum resolution is the Minnesota Timberwolves of the National Basketball Association ought to trade shooting guard Jimmy Butler. Contention 1 is conflict with other players. Andrew Wiggins, a star small forward on the Timberwolves, his own brother said on Twitter, hallelujah, when Butler made his request to be traded. That means that Wiggins and Butler have tension right there. Furthermore, on the Timberwolves star center, Karl Anthony Towns, Jimmy Butler has continuously talked trash behind his back, to the point where Karl Anthony Towns has claimed that he will not sign an extension with the team unless Butler is traded. Thus, trading allows the current star players of the team to coexist more peacefully. In the neg world, there's not going to be the peace in the franchise. The impact is the future. You should value Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins over Jimmy Butler for 2 reasons. First is because they're younger, and second because 2 players are more players than 1. Contention 2 is the big haul. Jimmy Butler right now is undoubtedly a top 15 current player. Thus, a trade would get big name players to the Timberwolves. Jimmy Butler right now is showing interest in 3 organizations: the Brooklyn Nets, the Los Angeles Clippers, and the New York Knicks. Even teams outside of this list of 3 could trade for him. Look to previous examples of Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Kyrie Irving. All 3 of those superstars were traded to teams that they did not request. Furthermore, look to the previous examples regarding their haul. Look to Victor Oladipo. Last season, Victor Oladipo was traded to the Thunder, where he was a backup to the Indiana Pacers. Now he's an all-star. That was for Paul George. And then look to just this past offseason, where DeMar DeRozan was traded to San Antonio from Toronto for Kawhi Leonard. He's a superstar. The Timberwolves would get a big haul. Contention 3 is getting rid of Coach Tom Thibodeau. Woj bomb. Tibbs wants to keep Butler even at the expense of his own job, at the point where Tibbs is so insane that he'll literally get fired to keep 1 player. That's a reason right there where you don't want him as your coach. Furthermore, it's reported that Minnesota Timberwolves owner Glenn Taylor is willing to go over Thibodeau's head to trade Jimmy Butler. Thus, in a world where the Wolves trade Butler, is a world where Thibodeau and Taylor are so far apart that there's no way Thibodeau can remain president of basketball operations or the coach of the team. There are 3 impacts from this. First is relations with star players. It's no secret that the Timberwolves players do not like Tom Thibodeau because Tom Thibodeau is simply an outdated coach. Second, fatigue. Again, his outdated system goes to the rotation at the point where some star players like Karl Anthony Towns are overplayed up to 40 minutes on a regular season night when they have a game of the very next day. And third is better management. Thibodeau has constantly made numerous terrible decisions regarding the future of the Timberwolves, at the point where just last offseason, he literally traded away part of his future for Jimmy Butler. That's an example right there of a horrible decision. Now for a poem to end it off. Sun is down, freezing cold. That's how we already know. Winter's here. My dog will probably do it for a Louis belt. That's just all he know. He don't know nothing else. I tried to show him. Yeah. Gone on you with the pick and roll. Young LaFlame, he in sicko mode. Joseph E. Donu and I have been best friends since birth. We're the only team that you should be voting for. Vote for a better Timberwolves organization and vote at.
To be clear, you 2 are the at or pro, right?
Yes.
All right.
Negate the United States should accede to the United Nations Convention on the Law of Seas without reservations. Our sole contention is South China Sea. The U.S.'s presence in the South China Sea is currently maintaining stability. Stashwick in 2017 identifies the historical success of current military strategy by writing, "For the last 20 years, American hard power has frozen disputes and prevented conflict escalation between China and the U.S. In fact, Valencia, the diplomat 18, writes that the most contentious disputes between the United States and China have now reached a new state of new normalcy." and concludes that because of current U.S. policy, neither side will escalate tensions by taking confrontational actions in the South China Sea. By sticking with the current U.S. hard power policy, we will eventually be able to end the conflict. Bow of National Interest in 2018 writes that U.S. hard power in the region has consistently checked back Chinese aggression, and as time goes on, will eventually force China into a stalemate. Vogt concludes that because of this stalemate will eventually lead both sides to pursue a diplomatic end to the South China Sea. Our hard power in the region is bringing an end to conflict, but acceding to UNCLOS causes peace to come to an end. Kumar of the National Maritime Foundation in 2011 writes that by acceding to UNCLOS, the U.S.'s military flexibility in the South China Sea will be harmed by the many legal implications and hurdles created by UNCLOS. Indeed, if the U.S. accedes to UNCLOS, its military would be constrained by China for two reasons. First is Article 301 and 88. The National Center in 2006 writes that inside of UNCLOS, Article 301 states that countries must refrain from any threat or use of force against other countries, and Article 88 states the high seas shall be reserved for peaceful purposes. The National Center furthers writing that once the U.S. joins, these articles, when cited by others, have the potential for constraining U.S. defense operations on the high seas. Second is because of no-go zones. Bolton of the Wall Street Journal in 2011 writes that China will exploit the ambiguities inside of UNCLOS to constrain U.S. naval activities. Specifically, China will deny American access to nearby waters by declaring no-go zones. The U.S. is prohibited from entering using its naval or aerial forces. This effectively means China can block the U.S. from using its hard power. Thus, if the U.S. Navy left the region, China would be able to freely take over the South China Sea. Pham of the Diplomat in 2018 writes that backing down to China in the South China Sea would only embolden Beijing to accelerate expansion in the area and reinforce the perception that Beijing is a rising dominant power, while the U.S. is a declining one that can be intimidated out of the region, creating long-term appeasement. The impact of letting China freely expand across the South China Sea is harming trade. Crabtree 16 of CNBC writes that $5 trillion of trade annually passes through the region, supplying 1.5 billion people with food and jobs. Thus, any type of disruption would be jeopardizing vital trade for millions. With full control of the South China Sea, China would harm trade in two ways. First, IFPA in 2017 finds that if China were to gain control of the South China Sea, they would be able to freely harass commercial shipping, which would increase the insurance rates on ships. Second, IFPA also finds that China would be able to impose targeted trade disruptions against smaller nations in order to gain leverage. Trade is crucial to maintain. Even short-term disruptions can spike prices of basic goods and push millions into poverty. PBS finds that the last time food prices spiked, it pushed 44 million people into poverty, thus we negate.
Are you ready for cross?
Yeah.
Okay, can I have a quick question?
Sure.
Okay, how's your day been so far?
It's been pretty good. What about you?
No, it's been pretty good, thanks. You can have a question.
That's good too. Alright, so like you taught me in your contention one that like people talk trash, but like I didn't really hear names, so like
Okay, so basically what we're saying is that right now Jimmy Butler, who is like a star player on the Timberwolves, has been constantly talking trash about their best player, their other star player, Karl Anthony Towns. Like that creates tensions between the two superstars, and that's like not a good dynamic for a basketball team. Can I have a question?
yeah.
Okay, what does the convention of the law of the sea have to do with the NBA?
Actually, nothing really, but that's just the topic, so
Okay, why can't I give a new topic? If I don't like this topic, why can't I give a new topic?
honestly, I don't really know, but I think because NSDA like requires that we compete with this topic.
You can have a question.
Okay, so what does basketball have anything to do with UNCLOS actually?
Oh, it doesn't. The thing is that I feel like that's what we give in our firm. We tell you that like because like it's obvious that like me and Donu care so little about UNCLOS that like we care so much about the NBA that we would literally have no positive experience debating the topic. We're promoting more critical thinking and a higher engagement level by debating about Jimmy Butler. Okay. Like, can I have a question?
Yeah.
So are you by any chance a Rockets fan or like have this, if you had to prefer a team, would it be the Houston Rockets?
No, I don't really watch sports.
Okay, do you know if your partner is a Rockets fan?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the point where your partner is a Rockets fan, the Rockets beat the Timberwolves in the first round of the Western playoffs last year. How can we take anything you say with any grain of credibility? Because think about it, the Rockets and the Timberwolves have a budding rivalry. They're both young Western Conference teams, and they both hit each other in the first round of the playoffs. So if we're talking about the betterment of the Timberwolves organization, how can we judge anything your partner says in rebuttal?
I mean, okay, so since he's a Rockets fan, I feel like he can reply to this by himself, but like, I'm not, so
Okay.
I'll let my partner respond.
That's fine. All right, you can have a question. No, we have a minute left.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, so can you explain your contention too about Big Hall?
Okay, so basically we're telling you that right now Jimmy Butler is a star player in the league. I'm sure we could all agree on that, right? Thus, when you trade a star player away from one franchise to another, it leads to that team that's trading the big player getting like other big name players. So it's just going to lead to like a new, fresh look for the Timberwolves organization. Can I have a question?
Wait, no, but like, I don't get, like, what about him gives him a fresh look?
No, because right now Jimmy Butler is tired. Like he's just not a good fit on the Timberwolves. By trading him for somebody who is like at least like similar talent.
I feel like this is about loyalty at this point. Like,
Yeah, I know Jimmy Butler is just not loyal to the team. That's why we need to trade him. But that's why
Why is he not loyal?
He's not loyal because he's talking trash about his coach and his other teammates.
I feel like you have to stick with your teammates to think.
Yeah, I know. That's saying like it's kind of
Even if
messed
they
up.
talk trash.
I mean, you know, it's not really the teammates, or it's kind of the organization's decision what to do with it. I'm glad we ended off on the same thing.
Yeah.
Wait one second. Everyone ready? Yeah. Alright. Please close your eyes and let me paint a picture for you. Bright lights shine on the hardwood court, illuminating the painted logo of the San Antonio Spurs. The Minnesota Timberwolves gather in a huddle, ready for their season to begin. Jimmy Butler remains on a team, but there's a clear divide between him, Karl-Anthony Towns, and Andrew Wiggins. He lacks energy throughout the game, recording only a measly 8 points and 5 rebounds. In the locker room post-game, yells can be heard as he, Tom Thibodeau, and Karl-Anthony Towns exchange profanity-laced bars at one another. Now open your eyes. This is the world of the Neg, a world in which an unhappy, dysfunctional, and mediocre Timberwolves team may be scrapped into the playoffs while alienating their future, losing Jimmy Butler for eventually nothing, and extending the horrible reign of Tom Thibodeau. It is with all my heart that I urge you to affirm. On their case, it's completely irrelevant. It has nothing to do with the Timberwolves, NBA, Jimmy Butler. It's about some convention. Ignore it. Vote F.
Everyone ready?
I guess.
Alright. Promise?
Yeah.
Alright, so time starts now. Judge, we contend that right now the most important thing is unclose, right? This is because that's the topic, that's the resolution. You want to abide by the resolution. At that point where our whole case stands, you can just extend pretty much everything across the flow and already vote for the neg. But let's go on to their case, right? So first off, on the contention one about Jimmy Butler. Realize one, that we consider that there's nothing right now that Jimmy Butler has done enough to push him out of the team. They never proved to you that right now there's a problem in the Timberwolves. They themselves tell you that the Timberwolves reached the playoff. That means that right now the system's working. We don't need to trade Jimmy Butler because it's not going to really benefit the team. At that point, you're going to vote neg because you're not changing anything by voting for trading Jimmy Butler. So at that point, you're just going to vote neg. And once again, we contend that unclose is the most important thing. And this is because, one, we say that tensions are at an all-time low right now. And this is because of the Valencia evidence, Bo evidence, which tells you tension is all-time low. This changes when you join unclose, causes an increase in tension. But even if you don't buy that and want to look at their case, we still win off of their case because they don't prove to you that tensions within the Timberwolves are high enough that quantify and call for trading Jimmy Butler. Thus, I urge a neg ballot.
Okay, ready for crossfire?
Yeah.
Okay, so my partner asked your partner this already, but I just want to know for you, how's your day been?
Pretty good, pretty good.
All right.
What about you?
It's been pretty good. You know. I've been reading a lot about Jimmy Butler. It's kind of making me sad, but I think they should trade him. It's just my opinion.
Your opinion? Well, why do you think so?
So you bring up that they made the playoffs, but how long did they last in the playoffs?
I mean, I contend that if they made the playoff 1 year, they can make it again next year, and they can only get better, right? I contend, like, that's what I would believe.
What did Jimmy Butler, like, what is his position on this? Does he want to stay on the Timberwolves?
I mean, you tell me.
Well, he's requested a trade, right?
Okay.
So he's obviously going to leave after this year if they don't trade him. So is it better to trade him now and get some sort of return, or just let him leave for nothing?
But, so, how can he leave next year for nothing?
Because it's going to be the end of his contract, so he'll be able to sign with another team. The Timberwolves will have no.
I mean, I contend that the Timberwolves is better for them for this year, because we should look at like year by year, right? So I contend by this year it's better for them to have Jimmy Butler than to trade him for
So is it
some
worth
marginal
it
contact,
Is
right?
it worth it for 1 year of making the playoffs and immediately losing and like mortgaging your entire future for that?
But like you don't tell us who Jimmy Butler is going to be traded for, right? Like he could be traded for someone such as like Isaiah Thomas, who gets like injured in like the first like game, right? So like we can't really.
I mean, Isaiah Thomas averaged like 30 points a couple years ago.
But
So,
he got
yeah,
traded
he got
traded within like 3 teams. He went from the Celtics to the Cavs, then to the Lakers, and then
But
I
even
think.
that is better than.
I mean, I wouldn't think. I would show that like, how do we know that the player that we're getting from Jimmy Butler is worth the Timberwolves trading him?
Because Jimmy Butler is like obviously a very talented player. There's a lot of teams that would be willing to like trade for him because he's such a good player. Like Kawhi Leonard was the same situation. They requested a trade, and the Spurs managed to get DeMar DeRozan, who's like an all-star.
Like, do you think DeMar DeRozan wants to be on the Spurs? Like,
Yeah.
he spent his whole time at the Raptors. He dedicated his legacy
Yeah,
to the
but
Raptors.
obviously.
So now that he's on the Spurs, he's gonna be like, the heck is this?
But obviously he's not gonna. He would prefer to be on the Spurs than a team that doesn't want him. Obviously, he sees that the Spurs like want to have him on their team. They are willing to trade for him. They're one of the most respected franchises in NBA history. I mean, obviously, he might be a little bit disappointed that he had to go that he like got traded. But I think he's gonna give it hard out. Give everything he's got 115% to this.
So who do you believe is like the ideal fit for Jimmy Butler? Like, what team besides the Timberwolves is the ideal fit?
Like the Heat for him.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the Pelicans would be pretty good for him in my personal opinion. Like, they need a wing. Anthony Davis, MVP, caliber player. Would be pretty good.
What about the Rockets? Like, why would the Rockets want?
I mean, I don't think the Rockets have anything to trade for him, and also like Jimmy Butler has some like personal issues with Houston because his mother like abandoned him in Tomball and like whatever. That's good.
Before we continue, just making sure I have this right. You guys are Shaw Jan?
Yeah.
You guys are.
Ashraf.
Okay, I got it.
Alright. Just making sure I have it correct.
Okay. Before I begin, I'd appreciate if everyone started clapping their hands along with my rhythm. Okay, hold on. Okay, ready? Okay. They're playing basketball. We love that basketball. They're playing basketball. We love that basketball. Basketball is my favorite sport. I like the way they dribble up and down the court. It's like I'm the king of the microphone. It's always Dr. J and Moses Malone. I like slam dunks, take me to the hoop. My favorite play is the alley-oop. I like the pick and the roll. I like the give and the go. I like basketball. It's my thing. I'm playing come on, join it. Ball. We love that basketball. I'm playing basketball. We like that basketball. I've done prep before. You want to take prep? Sure.
Judge realized that in today's round, negating sees a much smaller chance of conflict. Stashwick from our case indicates that a conflict for the past 2 decades has been frozen largely due to our presence in the region. Bo tells you that right now the South China Sea, that this uniquely changes when you negate because Bolton finds that when you implement no-go zones in the region, it takes away the American security blanket, allowing China to militarize the rest of the region and increase tensions in the Av. IFPA finds that an increase in tensions causes trade prices to spike. This is problematic because an increase in trade prices causes food spikes, which left 44 million people in poverty the last time it happened. They didn't attack any of this, so you can flow our entire case across the flow. Thus we negate.
Alright, are you ready? since 6th grade, right? Like, not really, I didn't really do it in like middle school, but like, you know, I've like been involved in debates since 6th grade.
Alright.
I've assumed you guys have been involved for like
Yeah.
more than a couple years.
Yeah.
Alright. Like Grand Cross is horrible, right? It's like the worst waste of time, right?
Yeah, for real.
Wouldn't it be more fun if we were doing Grand Cross about something we all care about?
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, agree. Okay, then you have a question. Also, like your guys' day was feeling good.
Yeah.
Has your day been a little bit better because of me and Donovan?
Definitely.
Okay.
All right, so let's back on this Carl Anthony, right? So, all right, let's get back to the NBA, right? So, wouldn't you think? What are your thoughts on like LeBron moving to LA?
Oh, like I'm a massive Celtics fan. Like, if you look at my Reddit history, I think Honor I've been on there. Like, I'm a frequent member of r/Boston Celtics. Like, I hate the Lakers getting better. I really wanted LeBron to come to Houston, so I can see him play and stuff. I like LeBron a lot. It just kind of sucks that like
Yeah, I
the
mean,
greatest player in the world.
The Lakers aren't going to be that great. They're
Yeah,
going to be an okay team.
No, dude, they get the Cavs in the finals, but they beat the Celtics last year. They beat the Pacers.
They're
All
gonna
right,
be like
they're
the
not.
last year.
They were like. They were not. They're not gonna be that good. I don't think
I feel like
they're
this
gonna
Lakers
be.
team is better than last year's Cavs team. Like that's true. Like
Yeah, maybe, but the
Maybe.
West is like a million times better than the
How is
East.
the West a million times better?
Think about the
Warriors.
No, I'm talking about the
Rockets,
top.
Jazz.
No, the top four.
They're
The,
the
the
fourth
top
best
four of
team
the
in the
West and East. Oh, listen. Warriors and Celtics. Like I feel like they're close to me. Like I feel the Warriors are obviously better. Rocket. Okay, now I'm thinking about it. Like yeah, the top four of the West.
They're fourth.
I feel
Okay.
like overall.
I have one question and one question only for
Okay.
y'all. Do you like basketball?
Yes.
Okay. So that he basically just conceded our summary.
Yeah, you can see your sign. Stand there across the floor. Okay, I have a question.
Okay,
Have
good.
you ever been to a Rockets game?
I haven't won.
One game. Who are they playing?
I don't remember. It was like 2 years ago.
2 years ago. So James Harden was there. You still
Yeah.
had some pieces of that old team. That's a good. You went to a Rockets game this year, right? Connor?
Yeah, which one did you go to?
I went to the Jazz game 5. Where did you go?
I went to the Timberwolves.
Right there. He saw what Jimmy Butler has done in the organization. This is not a joke anymore, okay? This is serious. My partner himself.
Did Jimmy Butler change your viewing experience as
Yes.
a viewer?
Yes.
How?
He was like
How?
parading Carl Anthony Towns.
Yelling at him.
You
You
don't
don't see Brown.
I
You
don't
don't
care
see
that
Brown's
I'm
like
from
23 years
From the
old.
nosebleed seats, I could see Carl was on the verge of tears.
He's 23 years old. He's a little kid. He's like 8 years older than me, okay? And I'm 12. Wait, no. He's like 11 years older than me. But he's an all-star caliber player. If he worked on his defense, he could be a top 10 player in the NBA easy. He could be a future MVP candidate. And you're telling me that the person that you're defending is putting this basic a man-child with more talent than you can imagine. He's putting him on the verge of tears. He's hindering his development. You think this is a joke?
Alright, I think that like conflict increases the chance of growth, right? You don't grow enough if there's no one like pressuring you to
Okay,
get
that's
better.
like-
Jimmy Butler's only pressuring Carl Anthony to get better, right? It's all part of the plan. Like in a few years, they're gonna be like super tight and they're gonna be the best team.
Alright. Cool. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Is everyone ready? This is hard for me. This is really hard for me. Anybody who knows me knows I don't like to admit I'm wrong. My best friend from childhood, Zane Ashraf, can attest to this. But just go ahead and vote for them. I hate to do this. And really, in my heart of hearts, I believe the Minnesota Timberwolves should trade Jimmy Butler. And I believe it's a lot more interesting to talk about that than the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. But they're right about the resolution. I mean, gotta hand it to them. Let's give them a round of applause. Alright, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Conceded, so like you don't need to give a speech.
Alright, cool.
I mean, decision's obvious. I had signed the ballot really early. I mean, I'm gonna give you guys. I mean, I know it doesn't matter because it's outs. I'm gonna give you guys high speaks because I was entertained. I wasn't expecting this coming into a PF round, so. I guess congratulations. I will say you guys probably have a bright future as performance debaters in CX if you want to go that direction. I would suggest it.
Alright, thank you.